of what we have discussed last time. Okay, so last week we covered the idea about the types of solution and some of the concentration units. No? So we realized last week na there are solutions are made of solute and solvent. And when you mix them, they should be homogeneous because if they are not homogeneous, they are not considered solution. Now, depending on the amount of solute, no, pwede ka magkaroon ng saturated, unsaturated, supersaturated. But these are qualitative aspects. No? So when we say qualitative, we are just looking into the appearance or the qualities of solution, whether will it form precipitate or not. No? However, just I mentioned last time, analytical chemistry is a measurement science. So that means we should not only settle in qualitative data. Rather, we should have a quantifiable data, no, in terms of solution. And the quantifiable data for solution can be obtained using their concentration units. Okay, so concentration in itself is defined as the amount of the solute present in your solvent or in your solution. And there are lots of them in chemistry, but the most commonly used one is the molarity and the P function. Okay, so if you could still remember, molarity ang pinakang ginagamit and P function. But others are also used na. Okay, so yun. So that means for this session, we will cover the remaining part na. However, before we proceed with the parts per million and the parts per billion, let's try to answer one problem about molarity. Okay? Sagot tayo isa pang problem about molarity. Okay? So, ano uli yung molarity? The equation is, anyone in the chat box, ano yung equation for the molarity of a substance? That is, ano? That is, what is molarity ulit? That is the, ano? Dali, type nyo sa chat box ano yung sagot natin doon. Or you can unmute yourself para mabilis yung recitation. Molarity is nakatingin ako sa screen ninyo. Wala, nakalimutan nyo na yung molarity. Ano yung molarity? Ano? Buhay pa? Kaya pa? Molarity. Molarity. What is molarity? What is the definition of molarity? Ah, first two to answer it correctly, may plus 1 sa quiz 2. First two na magsagot, may plus 1 sa quiz 2. Sino kaya yung mabigyan natin ng plus 1? Bukod pa yun sa discussion board. Okay, si Kenneth sabi niya, okay, ngay isa pa. Okay, so yun. So dalawa lang yung ano, may plus sa quiz 2. Bukod pa yan sa ano ha, bukod pa yan sa nasa discussion board na. So every time you contribute, you will get points. Okay? So we defined last time molarity is the ratio of the amount of solute specifically in moles. Okay? That is the moles of solute divided by the volume of the solution in liter. So yun na yung pinaka-definition niya. Kung ano yung equation yun na yan. Okay? So, paano ulit tayo kumukuha ng mole? In obtaining the mole of the substance, you divide the mass by its molar mass. Okay? So, meaning, this can be expanded further into this equation. So, diba, we can still expand this further into M equals mass solute over molar mass solute times volume of the solution in liters. Kasi we know that the mole of the substance is mass divided by the molar mass. No? So, this is the expanded form of molarity. But in a sense, same lang yan. No? So, basta ang idea is that the molarity of a substance is defined as the moles divided by the volume of the solution in liters. So, yun na yun mismo. Now, let's talk about this problem here in your worksheet. No? So, there are two problems na similar. Specifically, problems 3 and 4. Okay? So, sabi dito, you are asked to find the molarity. Okay? Hanapin mo daw ang molarity given the percent weight of HCl. Ganun din sa number 4. Number 4. You are asked to find the molarity given the percent weight of hydrofluoric acid. Now, is it possible to convert one concentration unit to the other? Yes, no. Pwede yun. Kasi remember, if we can convert one unit to the other, kunwari, grams to milligrams, okay? O kaya kilograms to grams, kung kaya natin i-convert yon, that means we can also do the same for concentration units. Why? Because they are concentrations. They are units. And units are ought to be converted. Okay? So, kino-convert talaga yung mga units. Okay? So, ngayon, since alam natin that yes, it is possible for us to convert one concentration unit to the other, the question is how. Okay? So I will use problem number 3 for this demonstration. Okay? So sagutan natin si problem number 3. So sabi ko, yes, it is possible to solve this problem kasi sabi ko nga, units lang to. So they are ought to be converted. Now, before you proceed with your calculation, let's look first at the definition of the units. Okay? Sabi natin kanina, molarity is defined as the mole of the solute, okay, divided by the volume of the solution in liters. Right? Yan yung equation ng molarity. How about percent by weight? What's the definition of percent by weight? Naaalala niyo pa ba yung definition ng percent by weight? That is, ano kaya yung percent by weight? Ano yung definition ng percent by weight? Wala nang plus. Wala na rin nagsagot. So, what's the definition of percent by weight? That is the ayun. Okay, so wala pa rin nagsasagot. I hope gising kayo, ha? Sige. Anyway, so to answer percent by weight, that is the mass of solute divided by the mass of the solution times 100%. Okay? Okay, so yan. So percent by weight is the mass of solute divided by the mass of solution in liters. And can you see the resemblance sa ating equation? May napapansin ba kayong same? So, ang sagot doon, dapat meron. Paano natin nasabi na may same sa kanilang dalawa? Look at the top part, the numerator portion. This is mass solute. That is mole solute. Di ba we can convert the mass into the mole? How do we do that? We divide the mass of the solute by the molar mass. Di ba? Divide by molar mass. Okay? So yan. Ibig sabihin, yung mass ng solute natin, pwede natin siya gawing mole of the solute. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, yes, it is indeed possible to convert percent weight into molarity. Yung kasi hanap ng problem. So, okay na tayo with the numerator. Basically, whatever the mass of the solute is, divide mo lang siya by molar mass. You have the mole of the solute already. Now, the question is, how about the denominator? As you can see, the denominator is mass. Pagdating sa other side, it is volume. Okay, mass solution, gawin mo daw volume solution. How can you convert mass and volume? What equation will help you convert the mass into volume? Ano yung sagot ninyo? Ano yung pang-convert sa mass into volume? Read the problem. Andun yung sagot. Any idea? Density. Yan, correct, no? What is the equation for density? Density is mass over volume. So, ibig sabihin, if you know the density, you know the volume, you can get the mass. If you know the density, you know the mass, you can get the volume. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kaya talaga natin i-convert yung percent weight into molarity. We can really do that, no? All we have to use is the density formula, okay? Okay? By using the density formula, we can convert mass solution to the volume of the solution. Kasi ito na yung density ng solution. Okay? So, ganun. So, always, when you are asked to convert one unit into the other, first thing you have to keep in mind is to um, check whether there are similarities in terms of their equation. Similarities in a sense na pwede mo siya ma-solve ng madalian lang. Okay? Kunwari, mass to mole, madali lang yon. Mass to volume, madali lang yon. Ibig sabihin, kung kaya, edi kaya talaga i-convert. Okay? So, yan. So, now we know that it is possible to convert percent weight into molarity. What's next? Kasi tignan nyo, no? May mass ba na binigay? Wala. Ang binigay lang sa atin, percent weight and the density. Can we make something out of it? Okay? So, kung yung numbers lang yung pagbabasihan mo, wala. No? Hindi mo masasagutan talaga siya. But, in chemistry, you are actually allowed to make assumptions. Okay? Sa chemistry, pwede po mag-assume. And ano yung ina-assume natin? If that is percent weight, ano ina-assume natin? Di weight. Okay? So, ganun. If given ang percent weight, you have to assume weight. Okay? Weight ng alin? Ng solution. Let's suppose that our solution is 100 grams. Okay? Let's say the solution is 100 grams. According to the concentration unit, 37% of the solution is HCl. Meaning that if we have 100 grams solution, 37% of it is HCl, which corresponds to 37 grams. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, if we have 100 gram solution, 37 grams noon HCl. The rest ay solvent. Okay? So, yun yung pwede natin gawing assumption. We can assume that the solution is 100 grams. Meaning, makukuha natin yung grams ni HCl. Okay? Kasi 37% ng 100 is 37 grams. Diba? So, yun na yung mass ni HCl. Kailangan po ba 100 grams talaga? Not necessarily. You can assume any mass you want. Pwedeng 50 grams, pwedeng 31.33 grams, no? Pwedeng 3.14 grams solution. Any mass ng solution, pwede mo i-assume. As long as 37% of it corresponds to HCl. Okay? So, okay lang talaga mag-assume. Basta 37% non HCl. Ang reason bakit gusto ko i-assume nyo yung 100 grams is that kasi kapag 100 grams, yun yung pang-cancel out sa percent di ba? Percent per 100. I-multiply mo sa 100, edi magka-cancel out yung percent, di ba? Kaya ganun ginagawa ko. So, 37% by weight times 100, edi 37 grams. Now, okay. Now, what do I have? No? Meron na akong grams ng HCl. So, meaning, I have the mass of the solute. I can really convert it into moles. Pwede ko na i-convert siya into moles. How about the mass of the solution? Ito yon. In-assume mo na eh. Nag-assume ka na kanina, so yun na yung mass ng solution mo. Using the density formula, you can convert it into the volume of solution. Okay? So, hopefully, nakikita nyo yung mga pwedeng techniques, no? When solving for molarity given the percent weight. Okay? May assumptions tayong pwedeng gawin. Okay? So, mass ng solute, meron na. Mass ng solution, meron na. Then, we can start converting them. Okay? So, let's find for the mole of the solute. Okay? So, solve muna natin yung mga yan. Okay? So, mole ng solute. In our case, mole ng HCl. So, that is the mass HCl divided by the molar mass of HCl. So, the mass of HCl is 37 grams according to our assumption. And the molar mass of HCl is 36,458. Okay, 36,458 grams. Okay? So, ganun. So, yan yung equation to solve for the mole of the solute. Check na to. Okay? Check na siya. Kasi meron na tayong equation. Now, let's talk about the volume of the solution. How will you solve for the volume given the mass and the density? Just recall the density equation. Density equals mass over volume. Ano hinahanap? Volume. So, ano gagawin? You cross-multiply so that it will become mass divided by density. Kung hindi pa kayo magaling sa cross-multiplication, aralin maigi. Because uso yan sa Anachem. Cross-multiplication is everywhere. Or, you can use this technique. I'm not sure kung alam nyo na to. Pero to my former students, tinuturo ko to eh. Okay? Yung triangle technique. So, ano to? Kung ano yung hinahanap, tatakpan mo. Suppose I am going to solve for the density. So, in solving for density, mass divided by volume yan. Mass sa taas, volume sa baba. If I am solving for mass, takpan ko yon. That's density times the volume. Pag magkatabi, multiply. If you want to solve for the volume, takpan ko to. The equation is mass divided by density. Okay? So, that's how you use the triangle. So, ayun na. So, may equation na tayo for the mole of the solute. Now, we can solve for the volume of the solution. So, that is mass solution divided by density of the solution. Okay? Pag sinabi reagent, solution lang din yan. So, what's the mass of the solution? That's 100 grams. The density of the solution is 1.19 grams per ml. So kita nyo, no? By just making assumptions and using our former equations we learned last year, yung mga alam nyong equation last year, plus the assumption, pwede masagutan yung problem. Okay? So, pwede ninyo masagutan yung problem. Pag may question, let me know sa chat box ha. Sana active tayo para alam ko na nakikinig. Okay? So, yan. Pag may question, let me know sa chat box kasi natingin ako baka may nag-chat sa inyo. Okay? So, ayan. So, we already have the mole equation. Ito yon. The volume equation. Ito yon. So, we can just plug it here. Na? Plug in na natin. So, this is mole. And this is the volume of the solution. So, plug in na lang. So, for the mole, I will just copy everything. So, 37 divided by 36458. And then for the volume of the solution, I will just copy that. 100 grams divided by 1.19. Alam nyo ba, yung mga ganitong problems, nung high school ako, ganito pa rin yung mga problems namin. Third year high school, before K-12. Kaya nung nag-college ako, alam ko na yung gagawin. Okay? So, dapat, kung naaalala nyo pa siya, dapat maalala nyo talaga siya. Okay? So, yan. So, this part of the equation is the mole HCl. Okay, ito yun. This part of the equation is the volume of the solution. Okay. Ano yung kulang? What do you think is missing in this equation? Ano kaya yung dahilan ba't may space ako dito? Anyone who can point it out? Ano yung kulang sa equation? L. Anong L? The? Gets ko yung idea, pero more concise. Ang kulang sa equation ay sagutin ko na ha. Okay, ang kulang sa equation ay ayun, yung volume in liter. Kasi look na, dito it is ml. However, look at the equation for the molarity. It asks for the liters, no? Meaning we have to convert ml to liters. Okay? So we have to do that. Okay? So make a fraction. Nasa baba parati yung ml at nasa taas yung liters. Okay? So yun yung kulang natin kanina. Now, given that everything seems to be in here, grams will cancel out, the ml will cancel out, leaving us the final unit, mole and liter. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, we did it correctly. Tama yung ginawa natin. Right? So, anyone, what's the answer? Habang ako ay nag-struggle dito. Ayan. So, what is the answer for molarity? Pindutin natin sa calcu. Ayan, para mas malaki display. So, make a fraction, dalawang fraction. So, sa taas, 37 divided by 36.458. Then, sa denominator, may fraction ulit. 100 divided by 1.19. Then, you multiply this by 1 over 1,000. Oopsie, sumabra. Okay? So this is how your equation should look like. Na? So 37 divided by 36, 458 in the numerator. And in the denominator, that's 100 divided by 1.19 times 1 over 1000. So, what's the answer? Press equal sign. 12.0769. Okay? So, yun na yan. 12.0769. Okay, so that is the answer. Okay, so ganun lang. Madali lang siya, no? Basta, madali siya basta alam mo yung gagawin mo. Yun yung problem. Paano po kung di ko alam gagawin ko? Ngayon, alam nyo na kasi example ko na yan eh. So meaning, kapag lumabas yan sa quiz, you know what to do. Okay? Alam nyo na gagawin nyo. Yan. So again, what are the takeaways for this problem? Una, you can assume. Okay? Pwede ka mag-assume ng mass, no? Pwede ka rin mag-assume ng volume. And then, pangalawa, you compare the two equations. Para binigay sa'yo, molarity, hinahanap, percent weight. Compare mo sila. And then, recall all your equations na natutunan. Paano kunin yung mole, how to convert mass to volume using density. You need all those information. And then, once na mapansin mo that converting one unit to other is indeed possible, then you proceed. If feeling nyo kulang yung problem, kulang yung given sa problem, you can assume. Okay? Pwede mag-assume. In our case, we assumed the mass to be 100 grams. Pwede naman yung volume i-assume nyo. If you're going to assume a volume, make it 1 liter. Okay? Gawin yung 1 liter volume. Okay? Pag mass, 100 grams. Kasi in that way, mas madali tayo makakapag-solve. Okay, so that is the answer to the question number 3 in the worksheet. No? So, yan. So it's 12.0769 or pwede na rin yung 12.08. No? So that is acceptable. Do not forget the unit. Okay? So yan. Pag may prob set kayo, tas ganyan, wag nyo kakalimutan yung unit. Ha? So I already gave you the process, meaning you can answer number 4 in the worksheet. No? So again, if you wish to look for the answers, just click the last part of the page. You will be redirected to my Google Drive and andito yung sagot. Okay? And 12.077. Okay? And 12.0769. Percent weight and mass percent, same lang. Same lang sila. Kasi interchangeable sa chemistry yung weight and mass. Okay. Sa physics, hindi sila interchangeable. But in chemistry, pwede sila pagpalitan. Okay? So, pag may nakita kayo percent weight, percent mass din yan. Same lang. Okay? So, again, you can answer number 4 pero in your own time na lang. So, any question about the problem? Because if wala na, we'll proceed with the rest of the discussion. Okay? Just send your message in the chat box. I'm always speaking at the second monitor naman. So, makikita ko kung may question kayo. Now, let's talk about the parts per million and the parts per billion. Okay? When are these two concentration units used? Kailan sila ginagamit? So, these two concentration units are only used if your concentration is very, very low. Okay? Very low concentration. Okay, so super onte, like kapiranggot lang. Okay, so the parts per million and the parts per billion are the common concentration units, especially when it comes to determining the constituents in water, in water. Okay, okay. So kunwari, ano yan, example natin is yung Evian. Okay, so kung bumili kayo ng Evian nutritional facts or any drinking water, if you look at the back, may ganito sila nakasulat. Look na. So, total minerals, no? Feeling ko tuloy French na ako. Minerasyon total. Okay. Sabi dito, milligram per liter. Okay. So, the milligram per liter is actually the parts per million. Okay. So, if you divide the milligrams by the volume in liters, you get ppm. So look na. So for calcium, that's 80 ppm. Magnesium, 26 ppm. Sodium, 6.5 ppm. Potassium, 1 ppm. Silicon dioxide, 15. Bicarbonate, 360. So on and so forth. Okay? So, ano ba itsura ng milligram, no? So, ang itsura ng milligram is parang pinch lang siya ng powder. Imagine a pinch of powder, ilagay mo sa isang litrong pitchel. Ganun kaonte yung ating solute, no? Isang pinch lang. When you place it in 1 liter, ppm yung concentration nun. Compare that to molarity. Ang molarity, parang mga butil ng bigas yan. No? Maraming butil ng bigas and then you dissolve it in 1 liter solution. Okay? So, ganun yung molarity. It's greater, no? Okay, kaysa sa ppm. Okay, and mas lalo na yung ppb or the parts per billion. Okay, so ppb are commonly used in ultra trace amounts of the substance. Okay, so this is for the trace analysis. Ayan. So ppm yung ginagamit dyan, and then for the ppb, this is the ultra trace analysis na. Meaning super duper onti na lang nila. Okay, that using molarity doesn't make sense anymore. Okay, so so you divide the milligrams by the volume of the solution in liters, or you can use the micrograms divided by the volume of the solution in liters. So madali lang equation niya, mass divided by volume lang. Okay, let me share just a short story. I don't know if you could still recall, but around 2017, 2016, there was an incident in Manila Science High School wherein may accident regarding mercury, no? And you know, mercury, it is deadly. Okay? Meron nga isang chemist na patakan lang ng isang mercury na organic, no? Organic mercury. Dead siya. Dead agad. Okay? But for the students, medyo lucky sila because the mercury that na-spill is in metallic form. Okay? But still, it is dangerous. Okay? And the normal amount of mercury in the body, nakalimutan ko, no, is syempre 0. mercury in body, ppb. So ilan ba? Ito, so 2 parts of inorganic mercury per billion. So this is from the CDC ng US, no? Okay, so 2 ppb lang. So ibig sabihin 2 micrograms per liter. Okay? Super tiny nun. Wala pa yun sa isang siguro isang dust lang, ganun kaonte. Okay? Anyway. Parts. Saan na kaya? Okay, so ayan. So according to the Environmental Protection Agency and the Food and Drug Administration, the only limit is 2 parts per billion in drinking water. Did you know that yung mga students na accident na yun sa Maksay, no? Isa doon yung mga classmate ko na nag-analyze ng samples nila. Kasi nag-OJT siya sa National Reference Laboratory. Okay? OJT sila doon. Ako sa nuclear research ako OJT eh. Anyway, so yun, nagulat sila. All of them are shocked, no? Because the amount of mercury in their body is very high. Okay? Although not deadly. Buhay pa naman. But uh, that that poses significant risk, no? Especially in the future, no? Kasi heavy metal yan, it could chelate with our DNA, which can cause mutation. Okay? So eventually that mutation, when it goes out of scale, no, out of hand, it can be converted into a cancer cell. Okay? So yun. So ayun yung dangers ni mercury, no? So gulat sila kasi super taas ng ppb. And remember, parts per billion, parang lang yan, isang dust particle haluin mo sa tubig. Ganun siya kaonte. Okay? So yan, even though na onti lang yung allowed value, yung limit for mercury, ayun, nade-detect nila. Okay? So yun yung ultra trace analysis na. So they can detect very very tiny amount of this analyte or the solute. Okay? So yun lang, share ko lang yun kasi ppb yung units nila. So let's go back to the problem. So for the parts per million, also referred to as ppm, and the parts per billion, also referred to as ppb, madali lang yung solving dito. Wala nang mole something something. Okay? So let's try to look at this problem. A certain water has a calcium concentration of 36 parts per million. What is the mass of calcium in 500 ml of the water? So basically, since the concentration is ppm, we need to use the ppm equation. Okay? So since ppm calcium yan, so that means that is milligram of calcium divided by the volume of the solution in liters. Okay? So milligrams ng calcium 2 plus divided by volume of the solution in liters. Now, given na yung ppm, ito na yun. Given na yung volume ng solution, which is the water. So we just need to solve for the milligram of calcium 2 plus. So that is ppm, calcium 2 plus, times the volume of the solution in liters. Very straightforward yung ating equation. Okay, so yung ppm, pwede rin natin yan isulat as milligram per liter. Okay, so same lang yan. So 36 ppm or 36 milligram per liter times the volume of the solution. So that's 500 ml. We need to convert this into liter. So nasa baba yung ml, nasa taas yung liter. Cancel, cancel, cancel. So the answer is 36 times 0.5, so 18. Okay? So 18 milligrams lang yung calcium 2 plus sa solution if it is 36 ppm. Okay? So ganun siya kaonte. Gano'n kaonte yung 36 milligram? Mas maliit pa sa butil ng bigas. Okay? Ganun. Imagine yung ppb, no? Ibig sabihin, hatiin mo yung bigas ng super tiny. Ano pa rin yun, ppm. Hatiin mo pa. Okay, ganun kaonte yung parts per billion. Okay, yan na yung parts per million. Ganun lang siya ka straightforward. Okay, ganun siya ka straightforward when you answer it. Tinype ko pala yung answer. Okay, question? Because if walang question, we'll proceed with the next one. Okay, walang question pa. Pag may question, magtanong ha. Kasi solving to and maraming naiiyak sa solving. Okay? Now, let's proceed with the next concentration unit, which is normality. Magkaiba to sa molarity, ha? Normality. Okay? So, normality is very similar with molarity. However, instead of just reporting it sa molarity, we report the unit in terms of the equivalence. No? Okay? So, hindi siya mole per liter. Kasi kapag mole per liter, this is molarity. No? Instead, in normality, we report everything as equivalents per liter. So, hindi siya mole, na equivalent siya. And how will you convert the molarity to normality? Basically, you just multiply the molarity by an equivalence factor. So, ito yun. So, that small letter n is the equivalence factor. May ibang equation dyan, pwede kalimutan yun eh. Okay. Hindi natin sila gagamitan. Okay? So, that is the equivalence factor. Multiply mo yan sa molarity, you will get normality. Equivalence factor has a unit of equivalence per mole. Okay? So, yan yung unit niya. So, that's why if we multiply it by molarity, equivalence per mole times mole per liter, ang matitira ay equivalence per liter, which is normality. Okay? So ngayon, ano meaning ng equivalence factor? Okay? What is an equivalence factor? So it depends, no? Depending siya sa chemical na meron ka. So the equivalence factor can be either of these four, no? So if you have an acid, it is about the number of hydronium ions produced. Kapag yan ay base, the number of OH produced. If yan ay redox reaction, it's about the number of electrons donated or accepted. And if it is just an ionic species, then that is the charge, okay, of the species. So napapansin nyo, parang iba-iba siya, no? Yung equivalence factor natin, depende siya sa chemical. That's why IUPAC doesn't recommend the use of normality anymore. Dati kasi ito yung ginagamit, especially in pharmacy, no? But IUPAC said na wag nyo na gamitin yan because it's so complicated. Kaya ang suggestion ni IUPAC is to just use molarity. Because when you use normality, there are so many things that you have to remember, such as this four. Okay? So yan, kaya kung magbibigay kami ng problems about normality, yung basic lang. So let me demonstrate you how you will determine the equivalence factor, or yung small letter n, equivalence per mole ang unit. Okay? So I will demonstrate you how you will get the equivalence factor. If that is an acid, ganito lang. You just check the number of hydrogen it can donate. For example, HCl. How many hydrogens can it donate? Edi obviously, isa lang. Kasi isa lang yung hydrogen niya. Okay? So, isang H plus lang, meaning the equivalence factor is 1 equivalence per mole. Let's try another acid. Let's say sulfuric acid, H2SO4. Ilang hydrogen ang pwede matanggal sa sulfuric acid? Dalawa. Kasi dalawa yung H doon, no? H2, di ba? Ibig sabihin, dalawang H yung pwede mo matanggal. So, its equivalence factor is 2 equivalents per mole. Okay? Phosphoric acid, H3PO4. Ano yung dami ng hydrogen na pwede mo kunin? Anyone? Gaano karaming hydrogen pwede kunin kay phosphoric acid? Tatlo. Okay? So, tatlo. Bakit tatlo? Because tatlo yung hydrogen niya. Okay? So, what is the equivalence factor of phosphoric acid? Also, 3 din. Okay? 3 din. Okay, so yan, equivalents per mole. So, ganun lang kapag acid, no? So, tignan mo lang ilang H pwede tanggalin. Basically, you just count the number of hydrogens in front. Kapag base, instead of looking for the hydronium, you look for the OH. Okay? So, let's say that is sodium hydroxide. So, ilang OH pwede mo makuha? Eh, di isa lang. Yan, isa lang yung OH eh. So, meaning its N is 1 equivalents per mole. So, yan. So, 1 equivalents per mole. Paano naman ito? O kayo naman, barium hydroxide. How many OH can you get? Ilang OH pwede nyo makuha? Barium hydroxide. 2 lang. Correct yun. 2. Bakit? Kasi nasa subscript eh. 2 lang. Okay. So, nakalagay na sa subscript. So, maghanap ka pa ba? Okay. So, hindi ka na maghanap. Okay. So, meaning we can get 2 hydroxide and ion. Okay. So, meaning the equivalence for barium hydroxide is 2 equivalents per mole. Now, what about redox reaction? Naalala nyo pa ba yung redox? Kung hindi na, okay lang. Di-discuss natin sa chapter 6 to. So, for the redox reaction, basically, sabi dyan, you need to determine the number of electrons donated or accepted. So, let's assume we have this equation Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus with 1 electron. So, since 1 yung electron natin, meaning the equivalence is 1 equivalent per mole. Kunwari, copper to copper 2 plus. 2 electrons kailangan mo dyan. So, since you need 2 electrons, the equivalence per mole is 2 equivalents per mole, etc. Okay? So, again, wag na kayo mag-worry dito sa dalawang to. Kasi ito, i-discuss pa natin sa chapter 6. So, hindi siya kasama sa quiz. Itong dalawa lang kasama sa quiz. Pero itong dalawa, chapter 6 yan. So, I am showing you the redox equation. Be familiar with it because babalikan natin siya sa chapter 6. Kapag ionic species naman, okay, so kulang na ako ng space, dito na lang. Okay, basically yung charge lang hinahanap niya. Kunwari, you have iron 2 plus. Charge is equal to 2. 2 plus. So meaning the equivalence per mole is 2 equivalents per mole. Aluminum 3 plus. So charge is 3. Okay. Regardless kung positive, negative yan, okay lang. So it has 3 equivalents per mole. So do you see the complication now with normality? And this is the reason why IUPAC doesn't recommend it anymore. Okay. Dati ginagamit to, but look at how complicated things are. I don't like it. Okay. So, sabi ng IUPAC, wag niya na gamitin yan. Mag-molarity na lang kayo. So, saan to ginagamit? In clinical chemistry. Okay? So, hindi naman kasi under ng IUPAC yun eh. Pang pharmacy na yun eh. Pero in the field of actual chemistry talaga, we don't use normality anymore. There are some, pero yung mga lumang textbook na yun. Modern textbooks use molarity lang. Okay? So, ganun. That's normality. Okay? So, normality is the product of equivalence factor and the molarity. And the unit for the normality is equivalents per liter. So, talking about equivalence factor, the equivalence factor depends on your substance. If that is an acid, that is the number of H plus you can get out of it. Basically, bilangin mo yung hydrogen. If that is a base, that's the number of OH that your compound can produce. Basically, bilangin mo lang din yung OH. For a redox equation, that's the number of electrons being transferred during the reaction. Basically, tignan mo ilan yung electrons. in a balanced equation. And then for ionic species, basically, kung ano yung charge, yun yung equivalence factor. And since there are so many types of equivalence factor, we do not use normality anymore. Okay? Pero lalabas yan sa quiz. Ngayon, lalabas pa rin siya. But yung acids and bases lang. Yung redox, hindi na natin gagawin. Pati yung ionic. Okay? It's too complicated na. Let's try to have one problem. Okay? What is the normality of 0.1381 molar sodium hydroxide? Ito, madali lang. Hanapin ang normality ni 0.1381 molar sodium hydroxide. So, write the equation. Asa na yung mouse ko? Ayan. So, the equation is normality equals equivalence factor times the molar mass. Okay? So, what do you think is the equivalence factor for sodium hydroxide? Nasagot na natin to kanina. Nasagot natin. 1. 1 equivalence per mole lang. Bakit uli 1 equivalence per mole lang yung sodium hydroxide? Anyone in the chat box? Bakit 1 ang equivalence factor ni sodium hydroxide? Bakit 1 ulit? 1 lang kasi yung OH. Okay? So, you can only get 1 OH. So, yan na. Hopefully, clear tayo dun. So, to get the normality, that is just 1 equivalence per mole times the molarity. 0.1381 mole per liter. Kakancel yung mole, matitira ay equivalence. So, still 1381 mole per, equivalence per liter. Let's compare that with aluminum hydroxide. Okay, so this is aluminum hydroxide. What is the normality? Kayo naman. What do you think is the normality of aluminum hydroxide? What do you think is the normality of aluminum hydroxide? Sige. So I'll wait for your answers. Okay, so most of the answer is 4143. Let's check if it is correct. I think tama naman kayo. Hindi ko lang sinolve talaga. So, aluminum hydroxide, looking at the subscript of OH, it means tatlo yung equivalents per mole niya. Bakit naging tatlo? Kasi you can produce 3 OHs, no? So, meaning your N is 3 equivalents per mole. Okay? Times the molarity, which is 0.1381. Cancel yung mole. Okay? So, calcu. Oopsie. Mali. Wait lang. Ina-close ko ba? Ano ba yan? Okay. Kung gutom na pala kayo, kumain na kayo ba? Ako kasi nafe-feel ko yung gutom eh. Not pala nagmerienda ako. Hindi ako nagmerienda eh. 0.1381 times 3. Ayun, 4143 nga. Okay? 4143. So yan. So you see, even though the molarity is the same, the equivalents aren't the same because of the equivalence factor. So ganun kalaki yung difference nila. And ayun, medyo confusing to for chemists, no, like me. Ako, I really hate normality. Buti na lang, no, IUPAC mentioned na it is not recommended anymore. Okay? So, yan, molarity lang talaga yung dinidil namin. Pero kung mapunta kayo sa pharma, mga microbiolab, sometimes may normality, pero they are currently being updated to molarity. Okay? So, ganun lang. Ito, skip natin to ha. Kasi ito ay dilution problem eh. So, yan. So, basically, that is normality. Asan yung mouse? Ayan. Any question or clear pa naman? Pasensya na, medyo marami tayong gagawin ha. Because I want to cover everything eh. Para, in time tayo. And may worksheet naman kayong pwede pag-practicean. Okay? Last concentration unit na. Last na. The P function. Okay? So I'm not sure if you are familiar with the P function, but this is the one used in pH. Okay? Basta may letter P, that's a concentration unit for chemistry. Sir, sa worksheet po ba yun? Meron na pong answer sheet? Yes, meron na. Okay? So, andito yung worksheet again. So, let me just share it to you. Sa modules, punta kayo sa chapter 2 worksheet na. Nandun siya sa module 2. Ito yung file. Kung gusto niyo i-download, click this, print nyo. Sagutan nyo muna ha, bago kayo magtingin sa answer key. So, pagkasagot nyo, tingnan nyo kung tama kayo. Then, kapag feel nyo may typo ako, let me know lang kasi last year pa to eh. MTY 103 pa eh. So, let me know lang kung may typo ako so that I can update it agad. Okay, so yan yung mga calculations with explanation pa, this, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Okay? So, yan. Kompleto yan, may explanation pa to, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Okay? So, yan. Last concentration unit will be the P function. And just as I said, this is the one used in pH, no? Sa mga pH meter. Not only pH, pwede rin yung POH, okay? Which is the other version of pH. So, in general, what do we mean by a P function, okay? Or the P value? So, the P value is the negative base 10 logarithm of the molar concentration. Yun na yan. Okay. So, let's say we have P of X, no? You get the negative logarithm of X in molarity. You get Px. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, suppose my compound X is hydrogen. So, meaning pH is equals to negative log of H concentration. If you are looking for the POH, that's the negative logarithm of the OH concentration. If you are looking for the PAG, that's the negative logarithm of AG concentration. You are looking for the PCl, that's negative logarithm of the Cl concentration. Napapansin niyo yung pattern? Basically, X could be any chemicals, any compounds, whether ionic, molecular. So, yan. So, yung X, pwede siya kahit ano. Hindi lang siya limited to hydrogen and hydroxide. You can also use other chemicals as long as you know their molar concentration. And in analytical chemistry, or in chemistry in general, we usually indicate molar concentration by using square bracket, no? Pag square bracket yung nakalagay, automatic na sa amin that it is molar concentration. Okay? So whenever we see a square bracket, we know it's already molarity. Just get the negative log and then that's the answer. Okay, so let's try one problem. Ito muna, isip ako. So suppose the H plus concentration is equal to 3.53 times 10 raised to negative 7. Sorry, 6 na lang. Okay, suppose the molar concentration of hydronium ion is 3.57 times 10 raised to negative 6. Let us find the pH. So, paano gagawin yan? So, gawin mo, you just write negative log and then yung number lang yung ilalagay, ha? Okay. So, the negative log of 3.5 times 10, negative 6. Yan. Number lang ilalagay nyo. So, 3.5 times 10 raised to negative 6. Kunin mo yung negative log nyan. You will get the pH. Okay. So, it is a negative log of 3.5 times 10 raised to negative 6. So, 3.5. If you are dealing with scientific notation, you can press this na. Times 10. Press nyo na lang yan. Then write the exponent. Kasi I think some of you do this, no? Times 10 raised to 6. Okay lang yan. Pero may shortcut kasi. Ganito nyo na lang. Press nyo to, then write the exponent. Alam na ni Calc yun, yan ay scientific notation. Okay, so what's the negative logarithm of 3.53? Sorry, nakalimutan ko yung 3. 3.53 times 10 raised to negative 6 equal sign. The pH is 5, which means acidic siya. Remember, pag pH below 7, acidic. Okay? Now, negative log 3.53 times 10 raised to negative 6. 5.45. Question is, may unit po kaya yung pH? Wala siyang unit. Also, yan yung tinatawag nating dimensionless. Dimensionless. Pag sinabing dimensionless in chemistry, walang unit. Kaya, di ba sinabi ko kanina, in-emphasize ko, that only the number will be copied. Okay? Yung number lang yung kokopyahin mo. Yung yung unit, hindi natin kinokopya yan. Okay? Wala kasing unit yung pH. Ayun lang. So, it is dimensionless, no unit. Let's try one more problem. Malapit na pala mag-time. Ang bilis ng oras natin. Dapat pala 3 hours yung lecture niya. Para 5 units kayo. Kasi hindi naman pwede. Let's try this one. Ano sa tingin niyo yung una kong gagawin? Edi syempre sulat yung equation, PNA. So, the P of sodium. So, basically, that's the negative log of the molar concentration of sodium. Ano ulit to? This is molar concentration. Given ba yung molarity? Hindi. Hindi given yung molarity. Ang binigay lang, mass and yung volume. Pwede mo naman kunin yung molarity, di ba? Solve natin yung molarity. Okay? So, dito tayo. Okay, so molarity NaCl, yung kasi given sa atin. So what's the equation? Mass NaCl, molar mass NaCl, volume solution in liters. The mass of NaCl is 0.52 grams. Molar mass NaCl, Google natin. Molar mass NaCl. 58.44. 58.44. 5844. And then the volume of the solution is 250 ml. Okay, so 250 ml, convert into liters. Do not forget that. Convert. Yan. Napahaba masyado. Okay, so 1,000 ml, 1 liter. Okay. Yan. Ano yung molarity? Solve kayo. So, cancel mo yung grams, cancel mo yung ml, cancel mo yung... Okay na pala. So, the unit is mole per liter. What's the molarity of NaCl? Pakitype na lang sa chat box. Tignan lang ako. Ako na nga. So, the molarity is fraction 0.52 divided by 58.44 times parenthesis 250 times 1 over 1,000. Yan. Okay, so this is how our equation should look like. 58.44 times 250 divided by 1,000. Press equal sign. The molarity is 0.3559. Gawin natin 4 decimal places. 356 akin. So 0.0356. Don't worry. Kapag kapag quiz, kunwari, magta-type kayo ng molarity, allowed naman yung certain range. Okay. Kunwari, isipin nyo, nalagay ko is 357. Okay lang ba yun? Pwede na yun. Nabibigyan namin kayo allowable range. Okay. So that's the molarity of NaCl. Now, can we plug it there? Sagot ko is no. Hindi agad. Not yet. Why? Kasi, look at the equation. It asks for the concentration of sodium ion. What we have here is the concentration of NaCl. So, hindi mo siya agad pwede i-plug in. Because you have to look for the concentration of just sodium alone. Okay? Sodium ion lang. Okay? So, not yet. So, you have to find the molarity of sodium. How? How will you do that? So, basically, look at the equation. If you have 1 mole NaCl, what will you get? You will get 1 mole of Na plus and 1 mole of Cl minus, di ba? Kapag nagdi-dissociate tayo ng ion, do you still remember that? Kapag nagdi-dissociate tayo ng ions, minsan iba-iba yung dami nila, di ba? Luckily, in our case, 1 mole of NaCl is just 1 mole sodium. Pero what if kunwari yan ay barium hydroxide? Okay? If that is barium hydroxide, how many moles of barium will we produce? Okay? We will produce 1 mole of barium 2 plus. Pero in terms of the OH, you will produce 2 moles of OH anion. So important 'yon, no? Na um, you should not just plug in whatever concentration you have. Look for the stoichiometry. Okay? When I say stoichiometry, tignan mo kung tama ba yung dami ng iyong chemicals, dami ng ions in this case. Okay? Kasi for example, in barium hydroxide, you have 2 OH per mole of barium hydroxide. No? Kasi dalawa yung OH sa formula niya. And again, luckily, in our case, sodium chloride produces 1-to-1 ratio of sodium and chloride anion. Okay? So, buti na lang 1-to-1 lang. Pero kung ibang compound yan, baka hindi siya 1-to-1. Okay? So, to solve for the molarity of sodium, okay? So, that is just the molarity of NaCl times the stoichiometric factor. Okay? So, basically, ito yon. Nasa baba, 1 mole NaCl. Then, yung nasa taas, 1 mole ng ion of interest. No? By the way, I would like you to be reminded that as of now, you should be able to know the ions that will be produced from your compound. Okay? Diniscuss natin yan last year. Recall yung mga precipitation reaction. Diba? Yung reaction in aqueous solution. You know that the ions split. No? So, kailangan tandaan nyo uli yung mga ions na yun. Kasi if hindi nyo siya maalala, baka mahirapan kayo. So, kaya kailangan alamin nyo ulit. And just looking at the formula, NaCl, you will definitely produce 1 mole of Na and 1 mole Cl. So, basically, yun na rin yun. So, I will no longer solve for it. But the molarity of sodium is still the same. Okay? Kasi 1-to-1 lang naman yung ratio niya. Okay? So, 1-to-1 lang kasi yung ratio niya. So, ito na yung pwede natin i-plug in doon, ha? So, again, not this one, because this one is NaCl. Ito, yung sodium, dapat. Okay, so solving for the P of the sodium, that's negative log of 0.0356. What's the P of the sodium? Ano yung sagot? 1.45 na lang. Okay, so it is 1.4486 or 1.45. Okay, so kapag molarity for decimal places ang prefer ko, kapag pH dalawa lang. Okay, so 2 decimal places, okay na yan. Okay, so hopefully nasundan, ha. Hindi porket may molarity plug in agad, no. You should be careful. Kasi baka mamaya hindi 1-to-1 yung ratio nila. Baka mamaya 1:2, 1:3. No? So, magiging mali sagot nyo. Always remember to know how much ions you will produce from your substance. Okay. So, yun lang. Questions? Clarification? And again, pasensya na, medyo marami tayong isa-solve today, ha. Patapos na rin naman kasi tayo. Kaya, ayun. And you have your worksheet already. Okay, so let me show you anong items yan sa worksheet natin. Okay, so zoom in ko lang. So ito, may mga P, K plus, P, nakalimutan ko na magbasa yan. PFECN6 -3, ayan. So ayan. So namin mo muna yung mga molar concentration nila. And then kunin mo yung negative log nun. Okay? Ayun. And then may problem set din kayo dito. Popost namin siya nitong flare session. Kasi medyo busy din ako, gagawa pa ako ng presentation. Okay, so you can work on that, and again the answer is down here. Okay. Okay. So I guess wala namang question. Hopefully may naiintindihan, kahit alam ko medyo yung ating brain medyo masakit na, no? Okay. So now, let's try the other way around. Let's look at this. The P function pa rin. A juice has a pH of 5.31. Find the concentration of acid in the juice. Okay, baliktad siya. Why? Kasi kanina, given ang molarity, hinahanap pH. In our case today, given yung pH, hinahanap yung molarity. How will you do that? Okay? This is one of the common mistakes my student do, which is okay lang. Pero kung galing kayo sa STEM strand, you should know na mali ito. Okay? Kung hindi galing sa STEM, okay lang. Kasi algebra. Okay? Pre-calculus. So, ang ginagawa ng iba, they think of logarithm as something that can be divided, no? So, gagawin ng iba, negative log. Sasabihin na, sir, tama na ba to? Mali yan. Okay? Why? Because the logarithm is a function. Okay? So, that is a function, f of x. If you want to get x from your function, ano sabi ng calculus, no? Sabi ng pre-calculus. So according to calculus, if you want to get the x out of the function f of x, you have to get its inverse. Okay? Yung function, kunin mo yung inverse niya para lumabas si x. Okay? So you get the f prime of f of x. So that lalabas si x. Okay? So kumbaga ito yung reverse Uno card, no? Pag inuno card ka, bigyan mo ng reverse para ma-default silang dalawa. Okay? Lalabas yung x kapag ganun. So mali yung ganun, ha, na i-divide mo yung log, no? That's wrong, because logarithm is a function. And if you want to get something, okay, kapag gusto mo kunin yung nasa loob ng function, you get the inverse. And merong inverse yung ating logarithm. We call it the anti-logarithm. Okay? So, kapag analytical chem, kailangan magaling din sa algebra. Okay? Minsan calculus pa nga. So, what is anti-logarithm? Ito yung sinasabi kong inverse function. Okay? Okay? Ito yung inverse function for logarithm. Okay? For logarithm. So, ano itsura niyan? It looks like this, 10 raised to the function. Okay? So, that's the anti-logarithm. So, ibig sabihin, kung gusto mo tanggalin yung h, no? Kasi ito yung sinosolve natin, and we know na hindi natin to pwede i-divide na lang. So, kailangan ipasok natin sila sa anti-log. Okay? So, itong function na to, ilalagay natin dito sa anti-log. Okay? Basically, gagawin natin siyang exponent ng 10. Yun yung sabi ni algebra. So, to do that, first thing muna is you move this negative sign to the other side. So, it's negative pH. And then, at this point, you can now do the anti-log. So, what is the anti-log? Itong equation natin, gagawin natin siyang exponent of 10. both sides of the equation. So 10 raised to negative pH equals 10 raised to logarithm of H plus. Okay? So yan. So 10 raised to negative pH, 10 raised to logarithm H plus. And what will happen? Since yung logarithm and yung anti-logarithm ay inverse of each other, what will happen? They will cancel out. Lalabas yung H plus. So meaning, to solve for the H plus, that is just 10 raised to negative pH. Ganun lang kasimple ang pag-solve ng concentration from the pH. You just get the anti-log of the pH. Yan. So, wag nyo na tandaan yung derivation. Ang tandaan nyo na lang yung final equation. Okay? So, yan. Ini-explain ko lang yung derivation. Especially for those na hindi nakapag GenMath or calculus na pre-calculus. Kasi baka magtaka kayo, saan galing yung equation na yan? May derivation yan. Everything has their own derivation. Okay? Hinahanap yung concentration. So basically, that's H plus equals 10 raised to negative pH. So our pH is 5.31. So what is the molar concentration? Sabay-sabay napipindot sa calcu. Sabayang pagpindot. Okay? So 10 raised to, ito yung pipindutin kapag raised to, yung x tapos may box sa taas. Negative 5.31. Okay? Yan yung pipindutin nyo. The answer is this. 4. Gawin na natin 4.90. 8978 na lang. .8978 times 10 raised to negative 6. 4.8978 times 10 negative 6. 4.90. Ayan, so ganun lang. So again, I really show the derivation because I don't want you to just accept every equations na kasi gawin niya, sige yan yung equation, tanggapin ko na lang, no? Sometimes it is better na marunong din kayo mag-derive, no? Okay? So I know it might be it might not be good for everyone, okay? Pero try nyo. Kasi ako, when I study, I just review the general equation. Then, nagde-derive na lang ako. Ganun ako nung college. Okay. Isang equation lang habisaduhin ko. Then, yan, ide-derive ko na lang. Okay? So, yan. And, sir, ba't iba lumalabas sa akin? Paano mo siya pinindot sa calcu? Ayan din yun. Naka-scientific notation lang tayo. Move mo yung decimal point. 4897. 48978. Move mo na lang yung decimal point. Ako, suggestion ko, i-reset mo yung calcu para bumalik siya sa scientific notation. Reset mo na lang. Shift clear 3. Okay. So, press mo to. Shift 9 3 equal sign para ma-reset. Kasi kapag may naka-enable sa mo kaya hindi siya naka-scientific notation. Ayan. Okay. So, ganun lang. Okay. So, that is our last concentration unit. Now, let's go to the Siguro one of the last topic na gagawin natin. Okay na. So, sige. Ayun, good na. Kapag yung calculus nyo, hindi siya nag-show ng scientific notation, i-reset nyo lang, ha? Okay. So, let's go to the last topic for today, which is dilution. Ano meaning ng dilution? Basically, kunwari, gumagawa ka ng juice na sobrahan yung iced tea. Nabuhos mo yung isang buong pakete. 1 kilo na iced tea. Anong gagawin mo? Edi lagyan mo ng tubig. Okay? So, the purpose of water is to increase the volume. No? And that has an effect when it comes to the concentration. For example, in molarity. Let me write. In molarity, diba, that is the mole solute over the volume of the solution. Pag nagdagdag ka ng tubig, ano yung nagbabago? Yung volume ng solution. But the mole of the solute is constant. No? Ito constant yan. Pag nagdagdag ka ng tubig. Kasi solute yun eh. Yung solvent yung nadadagdagan. So, in turn, the volume of the solution increases. And look at the equation. No? The volume of the solution and the molarity appears to be indirectly proportional. So meaning, yung isa nasa numerator, isa nasa denominator. What does it mean for math? Kapag tumaas itong nasa denominator, bababa itong nasa numerator because they are inversely related. So meaning, when I add water to my system, I decrease the molarity. Yun yung dilution. Dilution is a process wherein you create a less concentrated solution from a more concentrated solution by just adding solvent. Buhusan mo lang ng tubig, magiging less diluted yan. Okay? And this equation works for every concentration units. Okay? So it works for every concentration unit. For every concentration units, no? Whether that is molarity, ppm, percent weight, percent mass, percent weight, percent mass, percent volume, ppm, ppb, normality, except for p function. Kasi yung p function dependent siya sa molarity. Okay? So yan. So when you dilute something, all those concentration unit except for the p function, gumagana siya. Okay? Because bakit? No? When you add water, you increase the you increase the volume of the solution, therefore decreasing the molarity of the solution. And the mole of the solute is constant pa rin. Okay? So meaning, whatever the moles of solute before, that's the same as the mole of the solute after the dilution. Okay? So, since this is constant, okay, so we can cross multiply everything. So that's molarity times the volume equal mole solute, which is constant. Okay? At initial, when you multiply molarity and the volume initial, equal yan sa mole solute. If you do it in the final, same pa rin. Okay? So MFVF is equals to mole solute pa rin. Same pa rin. So meaning you can combine this to form the equation MIVI equals MFVF. Para siyang gas law. Diba remember yung gas law natin? PV equals K, P1V1 equals K, P2V2 equals K. Since K are the same, we get P1V1 equals P2V2. So ganun din sa molarity. Okay? For the dilution pala. Okay? So since the mole of the solute is constant all throughout, the equation can be written as MIVI equals MFVF. In some references, you can see it as C1V1 equals C2V2. Same lang yan. C stands for the concentration. Okay? So same lang yan. Let's answer some dilution problem. Oopsie. Discard ko na lang. Hindi ko pala natanggal yung mga equation. Animation, appear. Okay, anyway. Let's answer this problem. Kahit nakita nyo na yung sagot. So, how would you prepare 60 ml of 0.2 molar nitric acid from a stock solution of 4 molar nitric acid? Okay? So, kapag ganito, dilution yan. Bakit? Kasi, look na, you are given two concentrations. Sabi, from. So, ibig sabihin, ito yung initial mo. Okay? You make this from this. Okay? So, meaning, ito yung final. Ito yung initial. Okay? So, parang nag-grammar class tayo dito. Okay? So, you make this final solution from this initial solution. Okay? Also, something to keep in mind that the initial concentration is always higher. Okay? Higher siya. And yung final concentration, ito yung lower. Okay? So, laging tandaan yan. Yung mataas, yun yung initial. And yung mababa, yun yung final. Given ba yung volume ng initial concentration? Wala. Ang volume ng final, andito. Okay? So, this is the volume final. This is the molarity final. This is the molarity initial. Ang hinahanap ay volume initial. Okay? So, find for volume initial. So, the equation is MI VI equals MF VF. We are looking for VI, so that's VI equals MF VF divided by MI. Okay, something interesting with this equation, you don't need to convert units na. Okay? Ay, wala nang convert. Okay, so molarity final is 0.2 molar. Volume final, 60 ml. Molarity initial, 4 molar. 6 times 2. 60 times 0.2. Maybe 12 divided by 4. 3 ml. So, the initial volume is 3 ml. Tama ba ako ng mental math? 0.2 times 60 divided by 4. Ayun, 3. So, ano meaning yan? Ganito mag-interpret ng answer sa dilution. So, ganito mag-interpret. So, ibig sabihin yan, para makagawa ka ng ganitong solution, kailangan mo ng 3 ml of 4 molar nitric acid. So, how will you describe the preparation? Kasi yung tinatanong, how will you prepare? So, basically, ganito yung susulat nyo. Dilute 3 ml of 4 molar nitric acid with enough water to make 60 ml of 0.200 molar nitric acid. So this is how you will interpret your result. Okay? Ano yung mga binabago-bago lang dito? So ito lang yung mga babaguhin nyo. The volume, the concentration, and yung final volume and concentration. Yun lang yung mga pinapalitan. So let me share you na just visualize. Wala kasi akong Erlenmeyer Mayor flask with me. So, kunwari, ito yung 4 molar nitric acid. And then ito, volumetric flask. Okay. Ang gagawin ko, I will just get 3 ml of 4 molar nitric acid using a pipette. I will transfer it to the Erlenmeyer flask. And once in the Erlenmeyer flask, I will add enough water. No? So 57 ml of water idadagdag ko so that the volume will be 60 ml. And yung 60 ml na yon, automatically, the concentration is 0.2 molar na. Okay? Upon adding 57 ml of water, magiging ano na siya, 0.2 molar nitric acid. Bakit sir naging 57 ml na water? Kasi 'di ba 3 ml yung nitric acid. So ibig sabihin, the rest of the 60 ml is just water. So para kayo nagtitimpla ng ano, ng iced tea, 'di ba? Kapag masyado matamis, gawin 2 pitchel tas i-dilute. Okay? So ganun din sa chem na. If you created very high molarity, you dilute it, add water. Just make sure that you are using volumetric flask. Okay? Because remember, all solutions are prepared using volumetric flask. Okay? Any question? Siguro magbigay pa tayo ng isang last question. Sagot tayo ng isang item pa sa worksheet. Okay? Para naman onti na lang sasagutan niya. Okay, eto na lang. Number 6 na lang, madali lang tayo. How many ml of 15.8 molar nitric acid should be diluted to 250 ml or 0.25 liters to make 3 molar nitric acid? So again, sabi ko, the highest concentration is the initial. Okay? So that is the initial or MI. And yung mababa yung concentration, yun yung final. Okay? Ito, given yung volume ng final, diluted to so ibig sabihin ito na yung final volume. Okay? Gawin ko na lang tong ml. Ha? 250 ml. Okay? So yan. So given the initial concentration, 15.8 molar, the final concentration must be 3 molar with volume of 250 ml. Ang tanong, how much nitric acid should I use? Madali lang. Kung kaya nyo nasagutan on your own, pakitype na lang sa chat box yung answer. So, ganito magsagot ha. So, MI, VI equals MF, VF. So again, we are looking for the volume of the initial concentration. So that's VI equals MF VF divided by MI. Okay, so MI. So final volume 250 ml. Final concentration, that's 3 molar. And the initial concentration 15.8 molar. So what is the answer? (47 ml). Okay? So yan yung kailangan. So ano yung process? Let's talk about the process. So, gagawin nyo, ganito nyo siya isusulat. Kunwari, nasa quiz to. So, sabihin nyo, dilute 47.47 ml of 15.8 molar nitric acid with enough water to produce 250 ml of 3.0 molar nitric acid. So, ganyan mag-type ng answer. Kasi ganito sa quiz. Magta-type kayo ng parang essay. So, describe the preparation of this concentration. Sabihin nyo, dilute this amount of that with enough water to produce the final product. Okay. So, ito yung mga binabago ha. So, fix na yan. Minsan, kung gusto nyo gandahan yung words, edi better. Pero ako nung college ako, kung ano yung binigay na format sa amin, yun na lang. Kasi safe. Yan. So, ito palitan mo yan, neto. Usually, the thing that goes first ay yung initial, and the thing that goes last is your final. Okay? Ayun lang. Yan. Next one. Hindi ko sasagutan to, kayo na. Okay. Look at the next problem, number 7. So, sabi dito, the concentration is 28% by weight. Ito daw yung density. Tapos, ang final na solution mo ay 500 ml of 0.25 molar. So, ano sa tingin niyo yung gusto niya gawin sa life? So, given that your final concentration and the final volume is this, and yung initial concentration mo ay percent weight. So, ano yung technique na gagawin niyo dito? So, convert nyo muna yung percent weight into molarity, and then use the M1V1 equals MFVF. Okay? So, magko-convert muna kayo ng percent weight into molarity using the percent weight, the density, and your assumption. Tandaan nyo yung ina-assume natin. Then, once you have the molarity, you use MIVI equals MFVF. Medyo mahaba yung process, but worth it naman. Pag nasagutan nyo yan, kaya nyo ma-perfect yung ating quiz. By the way, quiz 1 next week, that is about chapter 1. Mga terms lang. What is matrix, etc. Okay, so basically that's it, no? Yun na yung ating mga topics na i-cover talaga. Okay. So yun. So ano yung mga na-cover natin today? Yung molarity from percent weight, ginawa natin molarity. Okay? Parts per million, parts per billion, normality, and ano yung equivalence factor. As you can see, for normality, the equivalence factor depends on the chemicals. That's why it is not recommended anymore. Okay? So for the P function, ito naman yung mga pH, pOH, something. Okay? Basically, you have to have the molar concentration of your substance. Then once you have the molarity, you just take the negative log so that you can get the P value. Okay? Molarity ang kailangan. If you want to do the reverse part, you have to take the anti-logarithm. Okay? So that's 10 raised to negative px. In this case, 10 raised to negative pH. And then in dilution, basically you just add solvent that increases the volume or the mass of your solution, making the concentration lower. But in terms of the solute, it's still the same. Okay? Kaya we can come up with the equation MIVI equals MFVF. Or in general, that's C1V1 equals C2V2. Okay? And this is how you prepare it. Now, for the last part, actually hindi siya discussion, but more on just remembering whatever we have discussed last semester. Kung naaalala nyo pa. Okay? So this part of the session is just for you to be reminded on how to make stoichiometric calculations. I know this is one of the hardest topic in your in organic chem class natin. But at least you already have an idea na paano gumawa ng stoichiometry. In analytical chemistry, wala tayong kawala because this is measurement science. No? So, lahat ng calculations nasa Anachem. And that's the reason why Anachem is hard. Okay. Lahat ng calculation nandito. So, for this part, hindi talaga ako magpo-formally naturo kasi na-discuss na natin. So, hindi naman tayo super spoon feed. Okay? So, your task is to just review, okay, how to do stoichiometric calculations. First thing that is important is yung how to solve the mole. Okay? So, tinanong ko to nung first session natin last week. To solve for the mole, that is just the mass over the molar mass. Another way to solve for the mole of the substance is by using molarity. Remember, molarity is mole per liter. You can transpose the volume to the other side, so you will get molarity times the volume. When you multiply molarity and volume, the liters will cancel out, giving us the moles. Noong gases, remember, noong nag-gases tayo, may gas stoic din, di ba? Wherein you can get the mole of the gas by using the ideal gas equation, PV and RT, di ba? So, to get the moles, that's just pressure volume over RT. So, ganito din. No? So, sa solution, instead of using the gas equation, we use molarity. Kailangan po ba molarity talaga? Yes. Okay, so kailangan molarity ang units natin kapag solution stoichiometry. Okay? So kung mass yung binigay, edi mas madali, you can use this. Pero kapag molarity yung binigay, use this. And again, how do we proceed with the stoichiometric calculation? Basically, there are 3 steps. No? The first step is for you to get the mole of the given substance. Okay, so until this part, given yung substance natin. Hindi lang mass, no? Pwede na rin yung molarity. Okay? You can convert the mass or the molarity to the moles. Then once you have the mole of your substance, you have to convert it into the desired substance. Okay? Okay? Pakialala uli yung mga na-discuss last time. So, from mole of the given, you get the mole of the desired. And once you have the mole of the desired, you can get the mass if needed, no? Kung kailangan. Do you get that? You just multiply it by the molar mass. Okay? Tandaan yan, ha? So, from the given substance, that's either mass or molarity. Convert them into moles. Then once you have the mole, you convert the mole into the other substance, the desired substance. Then once you have the mole of the desired substance, you can get the mass if necessary. You can convert the moles by using stoichiometric ratio. What is a stoichiometric ratio? Basically, these are the coefficients in your balanced equation. Ayun yung mga 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. Okay? So, kailangan marunong din mag-balance ng equation. But don't worry, in Anachem, as much as possible, the equations we will give you are already balanced. Kasi we know it's tough. Okay? Mahirap talaga. Kaya, as much as possible, hindi namin kayo bibigyan ng balancing. Okay? Para stoic na lang yung problem nyo. So, again, this is just a short review. Kailangan nyo lang tandaan yung mga ganitong bagay. Okay? So, let's try this one. Hindi ko to sasagutan talaga, no? But I will demonstrate you the process in solving this. No? Just the process, but I will not answer it completely. So, read the problem. What mass of silver nitrate? So, ito yung desired. Ito yung hinahanap eh. What mass of silver nitrate is needed to convert 2.33 grams of sodium carbonate to silver carbonate. So, ito yung hinahanap agad. So, this is your desired, right? Tapos, ano yung given yung substance? Ito. So, ito yung given. Ito yung desired. Okay? So, ganun lang. Yung silver carbonate, sinabi lang yan. Okay? Minsan panglito lang yan. Okay? But you should be able to distinguish what is given, what is the desired. Okay? So now you know your given, your desired. You can now plot your scheme on how you will calculate. So ito yan. Itong chart na to. So given yung mass ng sodium carbonate, okay? So your mass of sodium carbonate, convert it into mole. Yun yung first step. And then once you have the mole, ano kasunod? Sabi dito, once you have the mole, convert it into moles ulit by using stoichiometric ratio. Okay? So from mole of sodium carbonate, make it mole of silver nitrate. Yun yung desired eh. And eventually, the mass of silver nitrate. Okay? So yan, by doing that, yung mass, ginawa nating mole. Yung mole ng sodium carbonate, ginawa nating mole of silver nitrate. And the mole of silver nitrate will be finally converted into mass of silver nitrate, which is needed by the problem. So that is the equation. So how will you type it out in your calculator? So mass to mole, basically kung ilang arrows, ganun karaming fraction. Okay, how many arrows do we have? Tatlo. So you have 3 arrows, no? To my former students sa lab dati, which is onti lang naman sila, ang ginagawa ko is, tinuturuan ko sila paano combinein yung equation. Kasi kapag you solve for it manually, ubos oras. Okay? So, what will be the equation for mass to mole? Okay? So basically, that's mass over molar mass. Okay? So, kung ilang araw, ganun karaming fraction. So, the first fraction is the mass over molar mass. You get this. And next arrow, ibig sabihin, fraction uli. Okay? So, for the next fraction, mole of this to mole of that. So, mole ng sodium carbonate nasa baba so that you can cancel out. Mole of silver nitrate nasa taas so you can retain it. And use the coefficients. Pag walang sinulat, 1. Kapag meron, edi just copy. So this is your stoichiometric factor. Okay, so by doing this second fraction, you can answer the mole of silver nitrate. And then lastly, you just convert the mole to mass. Wala nang fraction this time. Okay, once you have the mole, ano gagawin to get the mass? Just multiply it by the molar mass. So that's how you solve for the problem. I want you to practice doing this, no? Okay. You have an idea naman already, but there are several items here in the PowerPoint that you can practice, no? So yan, and then you plug in everything. So 2.33 grams divided by 106 grams per mole times 2 over 1 times the molar mass, 169.9. Then you will get your answer. So again, I want you to practice on how to write the equations this way. Hindi kayo step by step kasi if you do that, mauubos oras nyo sa Anachem. Okay? That's how tedious Anachem is when it comes to stoichiometry. So, matuto magsulat ng ganito. You can practice it. Don't worry, I will give you a video on my discussions last year. Self-review talaga siya. Okay? So, hindi na tayo super spoon-feed ha. Okay? Kasi marunong na kayo ng concentration unit. On stoichiometry, this is something that you should know already. Not only that, no? Okay? Kailangan marunong din kayo ng limiting and excess reagent. Okay? So, for example, ito yung limiting and excess reagent. Ganito itsura niya. Given yung silver nitrate and sodium carbonate, ang given ay molarity. So, kapag molarity given, kunin mo lang yung moles. Okay? Moles of sodium carbonate, moles of silver nitrate. And then you do the limiting and excess reagent. Okay, so yan. So that will be your task for review. Again, all the answers are in the PowerPoint, and even in the worksheet, mayroon din kaming ganitong problems. Okay? Marunong dapat mag-determine ng theoretical yield because this is last semester pa. Okay? But don't worry, I'll give you a video for your reference na. Okay? So yun, kasi ang target lang namin talaga i-cover is yung mga dilution lang. Okay? Kasi ito yung mga bago. Pero yung mga luma na, reviewin nyo na lang on your own. Okay, sorry. Overtime akong 2 minutes. Pero I think wala na naman kayong class, no? So yan, that will be all for our session today, na? So I know it's kind of overwhelming, but this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of Anachem. Once you can catch up, no, with the concepts, madali na lang yung future. Okay? So again, all the answers to the worksheet are uploaded here. Just scroll down this page. Ayan, chapter 2 worksheet. Scroll down lang and then you will see the link to the answers. Click that and all the answers are here with explanation. Okay? But if you wish to clarify further, just let me know lang. Okay? So, yan. So, thank you for attending our session. Pasensya na if it is overwhelming. But I hope na you will still be able to retain the essentials. Okay? Kasi in 2 weeks, you will have your quiz here. Okay? So, good luck. I'll see you again next time. And let's eat our dinner. I'm so hungry na. Okay? Bye-bye. Ingat. And see you next week.
Thank you po, sir.
Bye.